I make meaning to my life, only me. I don't think we're taught enough about it, how to handle money emotions, money mindset. That was not a nice experience for me. Oh, Rob, haven't wanted to let you down. But I'm like, who am I to judge?
Hello everyone, I'm privileged today to be joined by Rob Moore. Now, Rob Moore is an entrepreneur, investor, author of 6 Amazon and Audible bestsellers, prolific podcaster, 2-time public speaking world record holder, and the founder of his own foundation. Now, he lives and loves entrepreneurship and property investment, running several businesses, and is the host of 2 successful podcasts. He lives up to his brand of the disruptive entrepreneur, and he's got various interests ranging from property development to public speaking to digital media. And he's on a mission to change the way people think about business, and he aims to support people around the globe through his Rob Moore Foundation. Now, Rob Moore is a very interesting individual because early on in his career, he co-founded Progressive Property, the UK's leading property training company, and Unlimited Success with his business partner, before venturing out to the wildly successful podcast, The Disruptive Entrepreneur, and the Money podcast, listened to in 192 countries and counting worldwide. He's grown into a complete digital agency with Progressive Media. He's a self-made millionaire by the age of 30, having risen to riches from being heavily in debt in his 20s. And Rob has retired and unretired countless times, each time creating a new innovation, vision, book, or entire company. Not only is he a writer, communicator, social media influencer, philanthropist, he's got 8 books that have been translated in more than a dozen languages and has received over 9,000 reviews. He's a very highly sought after public speaker, and he's given over 1,200 speeches in the last decade and has held 2 world records for the longest individual speech marathon. He's got a habit of cutting to the chase. He's very, very comfortable in his own skin, and he uses his personal experience to help others and entertain in a very disruptive way. And through his foundation, the Rob Moore Foundation, he provides an opportunity for underprivileged individuals, startups, and small businesses to gain valuable support, investment, and mentorship from some of the best in the business. And all of the profits from his book, Money, go also to his foundation. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, I've got to say, your bio alone sounds like a book in itself. How does it feel to you when you actually hear that being read back to you or spoken to you? Does it feel like a bit of an out-of-body experience sometimes, even till today?
Yeah, I get embarrassed, to be honest. It's actually now, I think, 18 books I've written or co-written. So you've got an old bio there. Honestly, I get a bit embarrassed, and I feel like I've got so much more to do. I'm 42. Just today, actually, I created a 15 7.5-year goals to hit by the time I'm 50. And I might only be halfway through my life then. So I feel like I've got a lot more work to do and can make more of a difference. But yeah, a bit embarrassing.
Now, this show is all about the theme of generational wealth. So if I was to ask you, how would you personally define generational wealth? What does that mean to you specifically?
Well, really, the best gift you can give the next generation is education. So if you can raise children to be independent adults, entrepreneurial, enterprising, and teach them to find ways to create great value on this planet for as many people as possible, then really you've given them the keys to wealth. And then if you instill in them a hunger or a desire or even a mission to pass that on to the next generation, that's for me probably a better definition than just creating enough wealth to live beyond you. Generational wealth doesn't have to be wealth that you generate that then you pass on to your children. Generational wealth can be wealth that you generate that outlives you. Now, sometimes a great curse is to give someone a lot of money who doesn't really know what to do with it and they haven't been trained how to use it. So to me, generational wealth, the lowest or the last definition is about making enough money to make your kids and your kids' kids enough money. There's many billionaires now, many famous people have come out, like Daniel Craig recently, you know, who was James Bond, to say that they're not going to pass most, if not all, of the money to their children. They believe it's a curse. So also the word wealth actually derives from weal, meaning well-being. So maybe generational wealth is living well, which is, yes, financially, but it's also emotionally, spiritually. So yeah, there's some thoughts on generational wealth.
I'm actually glad you've said that, because often people, when they hear the term wealth, they think immediately to the economic angle of it, really. And the whole area of wealth is, I believe it's a very holistic thing. You're looking at your intellectual capital, your spiritual capital, your human capital, and your social capital as well. And the financial side of things is a part of that, but I don't believe is the full thing connected to that. So we all face some kind of loss. For some, it could be a small loss, it could be a large loss. And often people can sometimes feel that setbacks disqualify them from ever becoming successful. Now, you once said that your first experience of your father's bipolar disorder was watching the police beat him on the legs until he collapsed. Now, you claim that that day on the 15th of December, 2005, was both the worst day and the best day of your life. How so?
The worst day, because seeing your dad humiliated and being humiliated by seeing that, and then feeling somewhat personally responsible because your dad had given you everything he could do, and he'd been very selfless in making sure I was always put through a good school or university or supported. So that was not a nice experience for me. But it was probably one of, if not the best days in my life, because it depends on how you view events that happen to you. And it depends on the meaning that you put on them. So, before I finish talking about my dad, the statement you made about a loss, well, your biggest loss could be your best lesson, because if you'd have already got the lesson, you wouldn't have had the loss. I believe the universe gives you the lessons you need to teach you to grow, to teach you to own the parts of your life that you've disowned. So losses will keep coming your way until you figure out what it is you need to learn to not make that same mistake again. And they'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. And maybe the best lesson is the worst loss. So back to my dad then, the reason it was one of the best days of my life was because it was one of my greatest lessons, and it was my catalyst for all things for change. I was 26 years and 11 months when that happened. Before the age of 31, I became a millionaire. I got myself out of debt before the age of 28. I made 100 grand up by age 28, 29. I made my first million before 31. I was a decamillionaire by age 35. I never would have done that had that not have happened. I just wouldn't have. I retired my dad. I bought his house. I bought his car, paid for all of his living expenses. I paid for his travel around the world. I wouldn't have been given the chance to do that if I was still consuming and sponging off him living in his pub. So life has no meaning, and events and circumstances and situations have no meaning other than the meaning we place as an individual. The brightest star in the sky that you can see doesn't look down and go, oh, that happened to Rob. That means that. The brightest star in space doesn't have meaning to my life. I make meaning to my life, only me. And the things I think you're thinking, or the things I think the listeners are thinking, they're probably not thinking. So the meaning I make around what you or they might be thinking is fabricated in my own mind. So basically what I'm saying is ultimately we choose the meaning in everything that happens to us. Now, we don't though consciously, because we're driven by our unconscious mind. We're driven by our primitive brain. We're driven by our fight or flight, our fears. But imagine if you were able to transcend that and just look at your life logically with graceful balance, and you see the blessing in every stressing, and the gift in every curse, and the lesson in every challenge. You know, imagine how much more out of your life you would get. Now, what often happens is we look back over years when we experienced trauma or loss years ago, financial or emotional, and we see the lessons years afterwards. We see what we were supposed to learn, why it wasn't all bad, because the emotions have been transcended and have long gone. And I believe wisdom, financial wisdom, emotional wisdom, life wisdom, is seeing equally the upsides and downsides simultaneously in the moment and transcending the emotions which distract you from, you know, the truth of the situation. So anyone listening who's had great loss or been screwed over or managed money badly, change the way you perceive the meaning of what happened, and you change your life immediately in the changing of that meaning.
Absolutely. It's all about perspective, isn't it? So when we look at this, if we look at this further, what opportunities can families specifically seize to begin building a financial fortress of their own? Now, irrespective of whatever's happening in the economy. And I ask this question especially within this new digital landscape that we now face post-COVID.
I have family meetings with me, my wife, my 10-year-old and my 7-year-old every 2 weeks. So I definitely recommend, if people have children, you could have family meetings whereby you express what you will want from the family, and maybe you talk about your careers and how to live well and support each other and grow as a family unit. I think that that's something that's a really great gift to do. I think educating yourself and your family around money and not being in any way concerned about how others will judge you about being money focused. I wrote the UK's best-selling book called Money, and I have a podcast called Money, because I'm on a mission to help as many people on this planet get better financial knowledge. Because I think most people's financial knowledge is not up to scratch. And I don't think we're taught enough about it, how to handle money emotions, money mindset, how to unlearn all the bad habits we were raised around money, and the incorrect meanings we've bestowed upon money, and the misunderstanding of what money really is. So that's another great gift that you can give to your family. Practically, you can open an ISA, get a Go Henry card, and start getting them to work and earn money and budget. And so my kids are 10 and 7, and they've started doing some work in my office, and they actually get paid cash. They get paid minimum wage, but adult minimum wage. And they've been taught that, you know, I say to Ariana, what do you do with that money? And she says, spend a third, save a third, invest a third. You know, she's 7 years old. So I think getting them understanding what work is and learning about how money works and earning money and then managing that money. I believe you won't gain or retain more money until you learn to manage what you already have. So learn to manage what you have and you'll gain and retain more.
Yes, that's great. Now
I need to write that quote down because it sounded good. Let me write this down for a you won't gain or retain more money until you learn to manage. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move into a slightly different direction. This is a segment of the show for the people that I called Build or Baffle. Build or Baffle. Now, this is a series of 5 rapid fire questions, and this is where you, Rob, get the opportunity to either build the people or baffle the people, depending on your answer. Best lesson you've learned from a hater?
To do your research, because if I've said things flippantly, my haters will always come out saying that I've not done my research, and sometimes they're right. So, you know, there's great gifts in haters, and don't dismiss haters just because they don't communicate in a way that you want them to communicate. But yeah, probably doing research, I would say.
Okay, great. Next question. Funniest mistake you've ever made in business?
I don't know that I've ever made any funny mistakes. I made plenty of stupid ones.
How about the funniest stupid mistake?
The stupidest mistake. The reason this is difficult to answer is because I can't even bring to mind what the mistakes are, which means I'm either delusional or I don't really see them as mistakes. So I'm not circumventing your answer, and I wish I had a funnier one, but I'm just being honest in the moment. So I can't really think of any. And that's definitely not because I haven't made any. It's because I clearly don't hold on to mistakes, and I'm clearly able to get the lessons from them. I mean, there are no mistakes, because to perceive a mistake is to perceive that something should have been different, but it is what it is, and it was what it was. So it wasn't meant to be anything other than what it is. So there are no mistakes.
I think that's particularly insightful because it shows your pathway of continual growth. You encounter something, you maybe look at it and decide, okay, maybe I can do that better going forward. But it sounds to me as if you've never allowed obstacles or issues that come up to alter your energy going forward and your mission. And I believe that's quite a great lesson for us all to learn and take on board, really.
Yeah. I think also not taking yourself too seriously. I mean, who am I? Who am I? You know, I've had meetings with people recently and they're like, oh, Rob, I haven't wanted to let you down. But I'm like, who am I that I'm above you, that you would let me down? Just because I own the company and it pays your wages doesn't mean I'm any better than you. Who am I to judge? Who am I? So, you know, I think sometimes that attitude can be freeing because you equalize yourself with everyone rather than over or under play yourself. But, you know, coming up in the next 50 years of our life, loved ones of ours are going to die, and we're going to see some of those take their last breath. And, you know, there's wars going on in the world, and there's starvation, and there's, you know, murder and rape. And who am I to get so het up about first world problems and mistakes? you know, I'm a speck of dust in the universe. I matter not. Now that paradoxically juxtaposes with the fact that I've got a meaningful mission to help as many people on this planet start and scale their business and get better financial knowledge. And I'm helping hundreds of thousands of people. I want to help millions of people. But you know what? Make a mistake, roll it off. Don't take yourself too seriously. Try and have fun at least a few times in your day. And you know, and experience life as much as you can in the moment.
I agree. I agree with that. Final question on this segment. What's been the most encouraging words you've received when you've least expected it?
I love you. I would say they are the most encouraging words I've received. And at times I've received them when other people are feeling pain, but they still have the kindness in their heart to say those words to me. That, I believe, the greatest gift you can give someone is when you are kind to them, but you know, that has a cost to you. You know, anyone can say something nice, but when you're hurt, but you act in kindness, or you just stop what you're doing just to help someone else out and put them before you. And, you know, there's been a small number of people in my life in recent weeks who've done that for me, and that's felt really good. And I hope I've done that for other people too.
Okay, great, great. Now, there's one thing that I would say, I believe, and this is my personal view, I believe this has personally endured you to a lot of people. And I would say, the reason I say this is because you've done a great thing by elevating your city, Peterborough, by both investing in it and also running business from there. So, what uncommon advice can you give people about serving others within their local communities? Because sometimes people feel that in order to be successful, they should move away from where they are. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I like the way that you have elevated your city by investing within it, running businesses within it, and obviously attracting a lot of new eyes to that area, which I believe has then brought in even more business and opportunities to the town of Peterborough.
Well, my mum and dad still live here, and you know, my dad's nearly 80 now, and my business is, you know, just down the road, and I've really, is the longest place I've ever lived in anywhere to call it home. So why would I run away from that? You know, is the dream you chase somewhere else, or is it where you are? Because I think a lot of people are running away from something. I don't want to run away from my parents when they might be here for the last 10 years of their life. Why would I want to do that? So I guess I found a way to make home where I am and not try and find home somewhere else, because I think you could be searching a long time. Operationally, property investing works better if you have a tight local area and you can get it well managed, and you can build good contacts and relationships and make deals work better when you can walk around them and you're near to them. And we figured that out early enough. We made some mistakes and bought some properties all over the place that didn't work, but we figured that out pretty early. So it was a business decision as well. And yeah, you know, we can always do some more to support, but I mean, we've employed, I mean, we have 80 odd staff now in our training companies and our letting agency, maybe more. So if you think about 10 years, 15 years of that, actually, we must have hired more than 1,000 staff locally. I mean, that's, I think, a really nice thing to do. or the business rates and the taxes, the council taxes on the 1,200 tenancies we have, on the hundreds of properties we have, the jobs that we create and keep people in, and all the restaurants I go in all the time. And I think just by being there and staying there, you can support it without necessarily, running for council or, working in soup kitchens. There's many ways that you can show support. In the property world, we've kind of put it on the map a bit. But that's also because we've been doing it quite a long time. And when we've been doing it another 30 or 40 years, it'll be even more so. But at the same time, you don't have to be loyal to a city just because you were born there. You're my brother and you're my local friend. It doesn't matter where you were born or where you live. So at the same time, I'm not overly attached just because of a predestination. I'm not going to go down the football stadium and swear and fight with people because they come from Cambridge and they support Cambridge. There's one race. It's the human race. So I tried to tend to look at things in the paradox and the balanced perspective, I suppose. So, but charity starts at home. Get yourself out of debt, look after your family, and then go and do some nice stuff for your community. It's there, it's on your doorstep, it's easy to do.
That's great. That's great. Now, next thing, I think you've alluded to it earlier, but more specifically, what would you say you are most passionate about? And conversely, what angers you the most? And the reason I ask that is because I believe the thing that often angers you is a clue to the problems that you're called to serve. And with those things, how have you used that to build wealth during your lifetime so far?
Okay. So I am most passionate about having sex with my wife. So that's just how it is. And that's the honest answer. I'm also passionate about helping entrepreneurs start and scale their business and get better financial knowledge. And I'm passionate about helping young and underprivileged people start meaningful businesses that change the world. I'm passionate about training and developing my staff to see them flourish. I'm passionate about making a difference. What angers me is critics and trolls who throw shit at people because they're not happy in their own life. And they're not honest enough to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm hurt and there's things I need to fix, because we're all hurt and there's things we all need to fix. But the way they deal with that is by pulling other people down. That angers me. That's driven some people to suicide, some famous people to suicide. And criticism is useful, but being critical, overly critical, or a troll or a hater, to me is, it angers me. It's not right. And I know the purpose of it and I can see the reason for it and I can embrace it and face it, but a lot of people can't. And I'd like to change that. So I push back on my haters. I have banter with them on my social media. If you follow me on social media, especially on my Facebook page, you will see me correcting their spelling and getting them to define what a wanker means, and having a bit of a dig back at them and pushing back at them, because no one else does, but I fucking will, because what gives them the right? That angers me. And I will commit to the rest of my life to pushing back on those fuckers and not making their life easy.
I think that's one of the things that makes your brand so unique, because you seem to be very, very comfortable in your own skin, and not everybody is. And I think that by you just being like that, it gives others a light to do the same in their own way, shape, or form. And have you found as time has gone on, you've become much more comfortable doing that? Or is it just become a natural progression of how you've grown and what you found yourself getting into with the various opportunities that come your way?
I would say it's a mix of working on it and really trying to unlearn things I learned as a child that gave me coping strategies and conflict avoidance and people pleasing needs, and trying to unlearn that and learn to push back, to be stronger, to face challenges, to call people out, to have boundaries. So that was a long learning process for me because I naturally was the opposite of that. It was also a realization that the more I grow, the more haters and critics I'm going to get. It's a natural law. So just, instead of fighting the universe, instead of having a headwind, why don't you get a backwind and go with it? So that was definitely an element of it. You can't, who am I to think that I can rant away and express my opinion, sometimes with less research than maybe it should be? Who am I to think that I can do that without any comeback or downside or criticism? That would be very arrogant of me to think that I can say and do whatever I want without being held in any way accountable. So I also see the upside in it. And I'm very grateful. Yeah, I've got one video just did a few days ago. It's gone over 50,000 views. I had one nearly 1 million just recently. And more of the comments are probably critical than from fans. So they've helped me more than my fans get the reach and the views. So thank you, motherfuckers.
Now, we're going to go to the final section here, and we're going to come back full circle to family. You've talked very warmly about your family earlier. And again, just with your family itself, what particularly inspires you about your family? Everyone can say, oh, I love my family's great, but is there something specifically about your family that inspires you? And what legacy of wealth and values do you want them and future generations to remember you for? And to some people, that sounds like, oh, that's quite a grandiose thing. But everybody has something to contribute, and everybody has the right to leave their mark on this world in some way, shape, or form. So how does that look for you?
Well, for me, I want to help as many people on this planet start and scale their business and get better financial education. My children are too young for us to know exactly what their purpose and mission is. So our best job is to let them try things until they can find it. I want them to discover life and learn it through osmosis as much as me just lecture to them on how life is. So I've probably softened on my view of imposing upon them. And the family dynamic, for it to function effectively and for a family to get the most out of life, you all need to have different roles. So being clear on your roles and, embracing each other's isms and quirks and knowing who brings what. Whether you're both building an empire or one of you is and the other one is supporting, one of you is raising the kids, or you're kind of co-parenting and co-building the family, that doesn't, you can break stereotypes and you can create your own family dynamic. I think was it Jackie Kennedy? She had a mission to raise the most successful children she could. And of course, Robert and John F. Kennedy were very famous people, made a big difference on the planet. So your mission could be to raise the very best young adults into adults that you can. It's a very personal thing, a family. I don't feel qualified or of any right to project how a family should be. I think understanding your roles and being clear with each other what they are, and including the children in that as soon as you can, I think will help you have a balanced family dynamic, which I think is important.
Yeah, that's great. I came across a fascinating interview by Richard Williams, the father of Venus and Serena Williams. And as you said, everybody has a very different take on how they do it. I found him particularly unique in the sense that before they were born, he had something like an 86-page business plan for them to be excellent tennis players, which they ended up doing. So that's a very unique situation. But I asked that question because I like to find out how different people feel about that. Because as you said earlier, it is different for everybody. And we have something that we can learn from everyone. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for taking the time to be on the show. It's been a privilege, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for coming today. Thanks, Rob.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
So if you want to find out a bit more about Rob Moore, his businesses, and his foundation, please have a look at the show notes within this episode, and it will direct you there further. Thank you.